Okay, let's get back to my next point. Point number 7, the discovery of vampires in the books is very different. In the Saga of Darren Shan, the character of Darren Shan is first sort of exposed to a vampire at the Cirque du travelling freak show. The character of Larkin Kretsley is introduced as one of the performing acts in chapter 11 on page 62, and instantaneously his best friend Steve points out, this guy is bad. With a book that is so obviously about vampires, it's nice to, you know, jump straight to the bones of the matter, and sort of, when the vampire is introduced, go, he's a vampire, ta-da! And not draw it out. It is only a few chapters later, on page 78, that Darren overhears a conversation between Mr. Kretsley and Steve, in which it is revealed both that Mr. Kretsley is a vampire to the character of Darren, which is fully established from that point, and that Steve wants to become a vampire as well. And this is sort of, you know, we're talking chapters that aren't particularly long, like 10 pages is a long chapter in these books. Sort of, you know, I mean, when you think about it, page 62, that's 11 chapters. I mean, 20 pages is one chapter in Twilight. That's a bit of a difference, which I covered earlier, but, you know, just bringing it back again as a point. In Twilight, it is established in the blurb. I mean, it says, he's a vampire. So why does it have to be this long, drawn-out thing of the character of Bella slowly discovering it? I mean, sat there watching her sort of go, he stopped a car with his bare hands. I wonder if he's Superman. It's just, you're shouting at the book, or at least I'm pretty sure I would be if I had to read through just that sheer idiotic reaction to it. Just going, he is a vampire! Figure it out already! I mean, seriously? Annoying. This brings me swiftly onto my next point, which is reaction to the discovery of vampires, which again differs greatly. Bella's reaction is effectively, ooh, you're a vampire. That's so hot. This is not like a normal reaction, at least in my opinion. I mean, since the book's release, it has become what is considered a normal reaction, and has led to many a webcomic establishing, you know, the joke of if one of these Twilight fangirls ran into Lestat, or, you know, an actually scary, normal, evil, blood-sucking vampire. I think my main problem with Bella's reaction is that a piece of vampire lore that I think is reasonably well known is the idea of a thrall, which is this ability that a vampire has to place what is normally a male vampire placing a young virgin maiden under his control. A sort of hypnosis that makes him irresistible towards her, and she is just drawn to him. And then he uses her as an easy meal, and sometimes an easy lay, with a virgin and all. But I'm getting off topic. My point is, if I was Bella in that situation, and I found out this guy I'd been irresistibly attracted to ever since that moment our eyes first met in the cafeteria, and, you know, if I found out he was a vampire, I would be wreathing myself in garlic and reaching for a steak. And, you know, not going, ooh, isn't it pretty? Darren, on the other hand, the character of Darren, runs, which I think is sensible. He runs his arse off, he runs home, he hides, he cowers, and then he does something remarkably stupid, but that shows one of the major flaws of his character, at least early on, and that is greed, in a way. You see, the character of Larkin Kretsley, the vampire, has a performing spider, and as I mentioned, Darren has a certain fascination with spiders. And he believes he can use the fact that Mr. Kretsley is a vampire to blackmail the vampire into not hunting him down should he steal the spider, which he does. And things turn out badly. But, you know, it just shows a remarkable difference in the respect you should give a creature that can kill you with barely any effort and drain you of your life force. So, next point. Siring, which is a term not used in either series of books, but I'm a Buffy geek, so deal with it. Siring is the process of one vampire turning a human into another vampire, and in both series it's not the typical siring process. The usual siring process is established that there's a whole lot of biting and sucking going on. The human is drained of blood, the vampire then bites themselves to create a flow of blood and forces the drained human with their last few ounces of strength to drink the vampire's blood. This turns them into a vampire. A similar method is used in the Saga of Darren Shan, only instead of biting, fingernails are used, because the Darren Shan vampires don't grow fangs. Because, as is stated by Mr. Krebsey in the second book, it would not be a very good idea to go gouging great big chunks out of their cheeks. So they have super tough, super sharp nails instead. And what the vampire does is on both himself, or him, herself, you know, they could be a vampiress, toward the human, takes their fingertips and uses the sharp nails to cut them open so that there are wounds leading on both himself and the human, and then presses these wounds together. And then with what's basically magic, because there's no established reason why it should, the blood flows between the human and the vampire, going, I think it's right to left, but the blood flows between the wounds, so all the human's blood goes into the vampire, and all the vampire's blood goes into the human. And so the vampire's blood in the human's body changes them into a vampire over the course of a couple of days. What's also interesting is that the character of Darren doesn't become a full vampire. This is something that I think is unique. I haven't seen this anywhere else. It may exist, but Darren Shan was probably the first person to come up with this idea. And that it is, if you give only a small amount of the vampire blood, it only changes the human in certain ways. So when Darren becomes a vampire, he gains strength and speed and the toughened nails of a vampire, but lacks certain weaknesses, like exposure to sunlight. Because he's a half vampire, it means he's basically got the best of both worlds, although he doesn't effectively see it as much and often sees it as a curse to be part vampire. But I find the differing way in which a vampire can be created quite cool, quite unique. Twilight, on the other hand, different, but I feel it's too far removed from what was. I mean, it's still this idea of the vampire physically injecting something into the human, only it's venom and not blood. And it just seems odd to me that the venom changes the human in a way so that they then produce the same venom. That point confuses me. And then the only actual siring process, at least to my knowledge, that occurs in the books is in the fourth book, where Bella is changed into a vampire by Edward to save her life, and he uses a syringe. I just feel that if he truly loved her, he could have at least gone to the trouble of biting her for it, you know, make it a bit more intimate, and not let's play doctors and nurses with it and get out sterile syringes to inject creepy vampire venom. Ick. But, you know, as I say, all this is mostly just my opinion, so...